Yeah, how you doing, Donna?
Good. Doing well, Josh.
Good. It's been a pleasure to see your different work that you've done over the years and all the awards that you've won for all your outdoor designs. And you get to play in some pretty cool spots, some ocean views and all that good stuff. It really makes it a lot of fun to see your work. So congratulations on all those awards and all.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have a question for you to start is, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this now for just about 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you a landscape architect?
I was very young when I started.
I know that, yes.
Yeah.
So are you considered a landscape designer, landscape architect? What is your background?
I'm a landscape designer. I came into this is a second career for me, actually. I joined, it's a family business. My husband started the landscape business first. He had a business, a small maintenance business, luckily in a very desirable community. And then also he was doing a lot of bid landscape work. And when I met him and then we got married, I was in the fashion industry. I was working as a buyer and, kind of oriented towards color and texture in a different way. And then decided that we would have kids. And it became really clear that I couldn't commute for over an hour a day like I was and put in the kind of hours I was. So I decided I'd work with him, contribute my business skills to his business, help to try to build that up a little. And then I thought I'd go back, but I ended up falling in love with the landscape business and the design end of it. Got a design degree from the New York Botanical Gardens and started designing 25 years ago and haven't stopped.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That reminds me a little bit of a Scott Eckley story. We had him on the other day, and he was talking about, into the fashion industry first. It's funny how that works, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of a really good background for this for any business, honestly, because you work your butt off in the fashion industry, and you learn a lot about business. You learn a lot about people. You learn a lot about drive, and you learn about how to really, push yourself, I guess. And so that's good for any business.
Absolutely. I think business is business, right? It's just a matter of, tuning it into whatever you're doing. But it's really cool. Now, what got you started specifically in this industry? Was it your husband or was it, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he had the business. It was something that we could do as a family, which, I think we were sort of ahead of the game on a lot of people these days are working husbands and wives and kids in the rooms. And now it's even become more so. When I first started doing it, if my baby cried in the background, I thought that was like a crisis that anyone would hear. I had a baby there, but slowly but surely it became a really great way to be able to combine our lives and our business together. And, I had always, when I was younger, I always liked gardening. I always did like that part of my life, but I didn't realize just how much until I started uncovering it more and more as I became involved. And so we started transitioning our business more towards work that could involve me as a designer. And my husband, Dave, is an amazing salesperson. So he would sell me and I would just kind of show up. And I was always kind of trepidatious in the beginning because I didn't come from that kind of background. But I found that what my skills were, where I had a natural talent towards color and texture and design, which I had found made me successful as a buyer, also made me successful as a designer.
That's really cool. That's really cool. That's so do you guys have a specialty or something that you guys do better than anybody else?
We do almost everything better. No.
That's what I was waiting for.
No. Yeah, that was you just like. No, I would say what our specialty. I mean, we've oriented our business towards the high-end residential business. That's Connecticut. That's a big part of the population here is a high-end residential. So we've geared ourselves towards that to develop to have a client that we take on from the design standpoint, do the design for them, do the installation, and then take them into the maintenance because we also do maintenance. And so we kind of geared towards that. And so the high-end clientele and then our specialty is really, we like to say that we have a business that is basically to leave the environment looking almost untouched in the sense that we want it to be timeless. We really like to work with natural stone. We like to work with natural wood. We have great masons. We have great carpenters that work for us. And we really do that kind of work to try to have something that when it's finished, you might be able to visit 20, 30. I mean, we're going back to look at designs that we installed, still now 20, 30 years ago. And what we're doing is additions to those. We don't we don't look at anything that's falling apart or anything that isn't timeless. And that's really important. Dave and I, over the years, have visited thousands of gardens around the world because we love to do that too. And always, that's what I'm taking back from my techniques, is to figure out ways to do things, working with materials and doing things that will last forever. And that's really the look that our clients like, and that's what we like to do.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm sure all that inspiration from around the world has really helped in your design. Let's say, how as a designer, sometimes you get in a pinch where you don't know what to do. And I'm sure you go back to pictures or whatever and be like, I think I saw a really good way to do that here.
Yeah.
And you never know where inspiration is going to come from. So that's really cool.
There's no doubt. And I've found that to be so, so important, really, not just to visit the gardens, but to visit the architecture. Because, just to be challenged mentally, to see something that's maybe done in a way that you wouldn't necessarily think to do it. And to say, wow, I didn't even think of that. But then it also just gives you something, that job I'm working on, maybe we could do something like that. I loved even just APLD, going to all of their garden tours. I mean, I took home a technique that I saw at, one of the gardens where it sounds really simple, but they had just edged out the walk paths with natural, cedar logs. And I thought, I've never done that. And I just happened to have a job that was big enough that it had a big property that now we were doing a woodland walk. And I said, I'm going to try that. I sold that idea to the client. They weren't sure about it. It went through. It looks fabulous now. And now I'm about to start doing the naturalized plantings along the edges of it. We did some woodland bridges as well. And it's just gorgeous. And I just thought, that kind of piqued my idea, was having seen that somewhere else. And it didn't, it's just whether it's.
Still with me, Donna? Can you hear me?
That. Can I hear you?
I can hear. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay. No worries.
Did you lose me? Was I talking for like a half an hour and you couldn't understand what I was saying, or?
I think it was just the final part. You were talking about edging the beds with natural plantings, and that's when you froze in position.
Oh, did I? Yeah. I don't know if I should watch myself then in stream. Yeah. So I just said that, it turned out beautifully and we'll be planting it now, but it's cool to be able to visit other gardens and other architecture and gain ideas that you can implement for sure. And we've done that. We've gone to London, we've gone to Barcelona, we've gone to Paris, we've got lots of different places to just get a little bit of inspiration.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're all people trying to solve similar problems, but when we have certain materials in our environment to use, it's interesting to see how somebody uses concrete in a position where in the US we might use wood, or, vice versa, whatever it might be. They use their native materials, but now we can buy globally. Doesn't really matter as much, but back in the day, that's what it was. So
right.
I want to shout out to some of the people here that are watching. We have Barbara Miller's watching, and Elizabeth Montgomery's watching as well. We have Zach Day's watching. What's going on, Zach? My wife's watching this too. Hey, honey. We have Benjamin Voigt and Joe Slemmy's watching as well. So we've got all kinds of people here watching.
Great.
So next question for you is, tell us a little bit about your business model. Do you guys just do design? Do you do design build? Like, how many employees do you have? That kind of thing. Like, what does it look like over there at Christensen?
Yeah, we get up to about 60 in-season employees total. And we're design, build, and maintenance. So we have right now about 2 people on the design team. We're looking to add a 3rd shortly. And we are, so basically I'm the leader of our design team, and I have 2 associates usually working with me, and we design, I would say, about 90% of the work that we install. We also do some installations for other landscape architects or designers in the area. So we do some really nice work for other designers as well. And then we also do maintenance, full maintenance. So that's right now one of our godsends, I would say, knowing going forward in this climate that we're really excited that we have such a great maintenance business, because I think, that's important. But we still have right now a fair amount of design work and installations. So we're really excited about how this year's looking.
No, absolutely. Times like this, having a maintenance division makes all the difference, because people are much higher, are much more likely to maintain what they have versus building brand new. So I know we've had a lot of in-depth conversation about that, you and I, but it's we've actually started a maintenance side on master plan as well, just for this. So we're very happy we have it in place right now. So
exactly.
they're not backing down.
It's a big part. It's a big part for downtime. So we found it, as I was saying to you earlier, we've gone as a company through 2 recessions already. And so we've seen what it's like to be in business during a difficult time. And definitely the maintenance is what helps to sustain you. But it also feeds your business in non-difficult times. In other words, if you can build a nice maintenance business, especially off of your clientele that are the higher end, what you'll find is it does come back around that maybe they just need a hedge of, for screening this year. But, there's always little bits of work to be done as far as, and also we really have built our containerized business too. We've done a great job with building that. We now provide, 4 seasons, if not 5 seasons of work, including Christmas trees decorated and things of that nature. So we do a lot of pots for containers, and we try to sell that right up front. I try to include them in my designs so that we're getting something that will be a business model for us all the way through. So it's, whether we're putting pansies and daffodils in the spring, or we're just putting fresh greens in for the holiday period and everything in between, that's a business builder for us as well.
Absolutely. Plus, it keeps you in front of your clients where you can have conversation, because people buy from people that they like. So if you're always there working on their property, you get all that added benefit. And then they might say, hey, you know what? See over in that corner, I don't know what to do over there. Can you give us some ideas? Pretty soon you're rehauling the entire backyard. It's incredible.
That's so key, Josh, because honestly, there's positives and negatives to growing your business, of course. And, our business is at a size now where often I am not interacting with the clientele much after the job is complete. We install it, I'll stop back in, over the course of the following year, usually just to see how things are doing, all of that. But then by year 2 or 3, I'm rarely on a job site that we did, unless there's a reason for me to be looking at something. And so that definitely does help. And I especially like to be able to try to participate where I can with, even just being on site, stopping in when the crews are doing the annuals. That gives me an excuse to stop in and kind of tool around and see how everything looks, how things are growing and how things are doing. And, have it, like you say, a conversation when possible with the client. It's very important.
Really good. Just to the side here, I see that Daniel Bay's watching. What's going on, Daniel? We have Bill Einhorn's here watching as well. He says, hey, Josh. So, we've got some. If anybody has any questions for Donna or myself, just feel free to put them here in the chat box. We'd be happy to answer them as they come in. We'll be watching the stream. So, Donna, tell us about your ideal client. If you could just take one client and keep photocopying them and multiplying them, what would that client look like?
We're not talking income here. We won't even get into that piece of it, right? I would say that the ideal client is the client who, I have a lot of them, and I'm very lucky that way, who sometimes when I meet them on site, I'm afraid that they know more than I do about their plants. I'll be like, oh gosh, because, how many times we're meeting in the early spring and they're, walking me around. I'm going, oh my gosh, ID that quickly, Donna, in your brain. Do you know what that tree is? So when they know the Latin names of all of their plants, number one, that's always, you would say, a scary sign. But on the other hand, it's a really good positive. That means they love plants and they love what's going to happen. That's number one. And number two, if they really respect what they've seen on my website and my designs, and they respect design in general, that they really are excited about the idea that you're maybe going to do something creative for them. That's the ideal client to me, whether it's a small budget or a big budget. And I've worked on all of those. The key is to have them be excited about me, what I know and what I'm going to do for them, and that they're willing to have at least a measure of trust until I can at least put something in front of them and let me talk them through my ideas and win them over and hopefully give them something really beautiful that they can enjoy for the rest of their lives. And that's the key, is to have that client that's willing to give you that much trust, as opposed to we've all experienced the ones that you go there and they tell you what they want and how they want you to do it and what they need. And, we're a design build firm. So there are times when I just design what people want, because, we got crews to keep busy, right?
Yeah.
But when that happens, it's not fun. So the ideal client is the one that wants me to have fun.
So someone who knows Latin, knows plants, likes Donna.
Exactly.
Sounds perfect. How do you screen that on the first phone call? Do you try some Latin with them, or how do you do that?
No. Like I say, I'm always intimidated. I have one client who I love, and she's a doctor, so she's very comfortable with Latin. And when I remember the first time I met her, it was probably, I don't know, 8 years ago or something. She told me every plant she had in Latin, and I just was like, oh my gosh, this is a little intimidating, because even though I know my plants, let's face it, I always get a little like choked up when someone's like, what is this? What is this? What is this? And especially when they do it in the early spring, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I'd like to say that my memory is that good, but I'm going to try to like identify that bud. Okay. But, so it's when I'm walking around with somebody on their property and they're, spouting things up, I'm actually kind of happy. It's like, yay. And at least I know then they're going to get excited enough that they may want a specimen of some sort. They might really value what I'm going to give them. And the fact that I'm going to spend time on coming up with a plant list that's unusual and different. And that's what I want. I want somebody who values that, as opposed to doesn't know anything, doesn't really care, and just says, well, I don't know, we just need a place, where we can have a patio over here. And, so
yeah.
I mean, those are dollars, and that's wonderful. And I'm happy to produce something beautiful for them too. But it's the client that knows, that really values what you're doing, and to the level of even taking the time to learn the plants themselves. That means a lot, I think.
That's cool. Bill Einhorn says a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean a good client, in my experience. We all have that experience, right?
That is very true. That is true. Although it often is less painful if there's at least more dollars there.
This is true. Sometimes you can just bite your tongue after a while, right? As long as there's enough there, bite your tongue for a while.
Yeah. I mean, if the check helps to cover, whatever that week's payroll, then, there's been those times for us over the years for sure, where it was like, well, and I think that as we all develop as business people and have experience, we all know, I mean, I can honestly say that I very rarely now deal with a client that I don't want to deal with. If my initial impression of someone is that they are not someone that I'm going to enjoy working with, for the most part, I will not work with them. And I do have that ability to make that decision most of the time now. So whether they have money or don't have money, if the attitudes and the personalities are such that I find that it's just going to be miserable, I really won't do it anymore. And, or I'll usually like price my design fees way through the roof, and that usually eliminates.
That's your broom. I like that. That's nice.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you still hearing the phones ringing this spring, or how's that been different than most springs?
Yeah, I'm going to say that we came into this spring with a lot of work, stuff that we carried over from last year, and things that designs I wrapped up like in December, January, and locked in work. So we had a lot of work that we brought into spring. So we're really busy with that. And then we've confirmed a lot of work that had been talked about, last year and in the fall and in, over the course of the winter. We've confirmed a lot of projects that are now moving forward. So it's been a strong spring for us right now. What I'm not so sure about is what fall will be like, because I'm not seeing quite as many, what I would say, but it's actually, frankly, a little early still. It's only April. So as yet, I definitely have been out on a number of appointments still, and there definitely are leads, opportunities. Right now, I would say we're booked through summer anyways, but for fall is the question. What will fall be like? And that's what I'm kind of not feeling as strongly that there's as much demand, because I think people are more, obviously for good reasons, worried about their homes and their families and things like that, and not really worrying about whether or not they're going to get their landscaping done and, a new idea for the landscape. But I think hopefully things get turned around a little bit, get a little bit better, and people start getting out into their yards. I think there'll be more opportunities for projects in particular for our regular clients. I think that's where I think the maintenance clients will really come into play, because then we'll be taking advantage of a lot of those contacts, and they know who we are, they know who's going to be coming into their yard, all of that kind of thing. I think that'll be important.
No, it sure will be. There's no doubt. Have you been successful in selling larger scale projects now with the shutdown and the outbreak? Has that slowed down, or is it about the same pace? Or where do you guys stand with the big ticket items?
Well, like I said, the bigger projects we have right now, most of them were jobs we already had coming into this year. And then we've confirmed some fairly large projects, definitely. So at this point, we're really have a lot of good work through at least the summer. But I'm working on a couple of designs right now that are pretty good size, both include pools, and they're still pushing me. So which I always like to be pushed, not too much, but a little push, a reminder. It's the ones that, you start on the design and you don't hear from them. And then you're like, so I'm, just about ready. And those are the ones I think you worry about, right? Because it's like, did they really care that I was doing the design or not? So I'd rather be bugged by somebody. So I'm still being bugged by these people. So I think there's still a good thought that these projects I can hopefully get for summer into fall.
That's really good. No, it's good to have that backlog. I know we have one as well, which is good. But eventually that eases up, right? We work the spring and the summer to get that fall locked in. So let's hope this pent up demand of people have now stuck in their houses, looking outside, being disappointed with what they have, hopefully plays to our benefit later in the game here. So that's always the hope. So how are you guys?
We found everything that's cracking and broken and things, the plants that are half dead now. Yeah. Everything has to go. You need to start all over here. Absolutely.
Yeah, this definitely won't work for another year for sure. So how are you guys handling the shutdown in Connecticut? What kind of limitations do you have? Are you able to work? Like, where do you guys stand?
In Connecticut, landscaping and construction are both considered essential businesses. So we pretty much are able as a business to continue to work. There's no limitations on us other than the physical limitations, the things that we've kind of had to put on ourselves from a safety standpoint, which, is working with smaller crews, staggered start times, just really safety, cleaning trucks, taking an hour in the morning, cleaning trucks in the afternoon, having crews have to be different crews than normal because you have to group people based on who they drive in with. We keep people together with anyone they ride with, as opposed to before we'd mixed people up, and now that can't happen anymore. So just lots of things that, the limitations on it that way. But otherwise, technically we've been able to continue working.
That's great. Yeah, I know a lot of places it's not that way. New York State and Michigan, and they've been completely shut down. So I don't know. We're very blessed here in Pennsylvania. We're able to keep moving forward. But we never thought this would be the case in the spring of 2020, right? I mean, no one could have seen this one coming.
I don't think so. And I think anybody that I talked to all pretty much was like us. You had a pretty decent amount of work either already in the tank and a lot of opportunities for this year. And what I feel fortunate is that none of our projects, knock on wood, have as yet been canceled, whereas I have heard of other people having projects withdrawn, from them. And I think that's the key, is that, we were very lucky that we could go forward, and we did go forward even through these really difficult times. And it is tough. I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy, and it's scary for everybody all the time, every day. I think all of our employees, are worried and but I don't know what I saw, something on the television recently that said fear is good because fear makes you focus. So it's good to be a little bit afraid and to be a little bit nervous about what can happen, so that way you're much more focused on what you're doing, how you're handling your tools, how you're handling your work, how you're interacting with people, all those things. It's good to be just a little bit afraid. And so I think we try to tell everybody to work hard and just be really, diligent about things. And so that's been our challenge. Though we still have the work, we're definitely going about it slower than we normally would this spring. So I expect the dollars to translate to definitely less volume than last year.
Yeah, no, I think most people are just happy to make it through and not really focus so much on the profit side, just make it through and, next year be prepared to roll. So
Exactly.
that's what I keep hearing. Now, have you guys had to do any layoffs, or have you applied for the PPP grant loan, or like, where do you guys stand with that?
We only really laid off one employee so far, and that person requested it because they had new babies. So they didn't feel comfortable coming to work and then going back home. And we totally, understood that. And so we gave them the layoff slip, and they're supposed to come back in another week because it's already been a month. But we'll see if they do or not, because I think things are taking longer than, maybe we thought in the beginning. Maybe it'll go faster. Some people said it'll take 6 months. Some people said it'll take 3 weeks. So we didn't know, but at this point, we'll see if that person comes back. But otherwise, we really mostly all of our employees have continued to work. They've really pulled together. It's been really miraculous, and we're doing it. And as far as the PPP, I did apply for that through our bank. I have Bank of America, so I thought I was really excited because they were the first ones that had the application available online. So I got it done. But now it's been like 2.5 weeks, I think, 2 weeks maybe. And, they just keep throwing extra forms in there to fill out. So you fill out this form online, do another form, wait to hear. So far I haven't heard anything official, but we figured, I think like most people, apply, see what happens, see if anything comes your way. And honestly, we've not known for, over the past, I would say 4 weeks, there was repeated times when we thought we would have to shut down completely. There would always be that scare, this is going to be the time that they've decided landscapers and contractors are going to have to shut down. But so far, as yet, we have not had to officially shut down. And I think Connecticut now is looking a little bit on this being towards the end of the peak for Connecticut. We've got the Hartford area is still remaining. We're in the New Haven area. I think we're supposed to have been peak like last week, and then we still have the Hartford area, but Connecticut is sort of trending out of the peak. So I'm hopeful that means that they would not be shutting us down now at this point.
Yeah, I would hope that we're, everybody's talking East Coast being over that hump, which is definitely good news to hear.
Exactly.
And I know that now there's some kind of an alliance between states in the eastern part, and I guess out west too, where we're all going to start opening and reissuing the allowance to open certain businesses. So it looks like hopefully we're on the other side. Things can start, returning back to somewhat of a normal. At least, whatever that means. It'll be different, but it'll be maybe open, right? You can go to a restaurant, or you can, actually have a human being within 6 feet. It'd be kind of nice. But Bill writes in here, he says, I thought that pool contractors were stopped in Connecticut. Do you know much about what they can and can't do?
Pool contractors are still working. They're still able to work. Yeah. Contractors in general are allowed to work. And so a pool contractor would fall under that, I think, under the home improvement. But also pool maintenance is categorized as something that's allowed to be done. So as far as I know, the pool contractors are still able to work. And when we do a pool, we design it and we do the coping. But aside from that, we bring in a pool contractor to do everything else. And right now, the pool contractors that we're dealing with, we don't have a pool in progress right now, but the pool contractors that we're dealing with are all working.
Yeah, I know we do. And the homeowners are getting a little frustrated because they look out at this big hole of concrete in their backyard, and it's just filling with water after all the rain we just had, and nothing else is happening. And the pool contractor has to get back and do all his plumbing and all his electrical and all of that before we can get into the concrete, which is still considered non-essential. So we're just twiddling our thumbs right now on that job site. We just have to wait. But what are you going to do? Everybody knows this is the situation.
It holds water. You can tell them. We can definitely see it.
You guys can go there anytime you want. It probably won't be the experience you were looking for.
That's right. Go splash around a little. See what you think about the whole feel of the spot. We
can still move it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, one of the things that we're finding is a little bit slow for us is the permitting for a lot of things too, so where I've got a couple of projects that are in the works for things like pools, getting somebody from the towns to be able to look at something, give you a permit, all that is a lot slower right now. Some towns are still working, some towns are not. It seems to be kind of up to the, I don't know who's deciding it in each town, but they're, not all of the permits are able to be gotten, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, we're feeling the same thing. We're actually incentivizing our clients to, if they don't want to jump into the big project right now, to get all the permit work done during this downtime, right? Because we actually find that some other townships are getting things done pretty quick.
Are they?
So yeah, we're going to roll through and say, look, guys, you don't want to be waiting after this the whole Corona thing blows over, and then you're standing in line with a million other people who want permits to build stuff because the world didn't end, right? So it's
great.
Let's get it done now, so you guys are first in. We can lock right out of here. You can do it this fall. You can do it next spring. We typically have a year on those permits. So
shoot, that's a sales technique. Let's get some more pools going.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't even think about that idea. Anyone even thought about a pool? Do it now so we can get the preliminary part out of the way for you.
And we have time, right? We have time right now. So
it works.
Yeah,
if you have the right town, like I said, for ours, it seems to be catch as catch can. It's like some towns they're in, and some towns they're not so much.
Yeah, for sure. Another question for you here is, how important do you think to have a well executed sales process in place for your business? How important is that for you guys for growth and for stability over long term?
Yeah, well, I have to say, I don't know if we have a well executed sales process. I think we could probably always improve on it. I would like to say that our sales process is more or less I go and meet with just about anybody. Pretty much. I'm not very good at screening in advance. I've always been somebody that just, unless somebody, we have some tools these days, right? We have Google Earth and all of those things. Yeah. So we always do try to get an address in advance of kind of like committing to an appointment, I guess you'd say. So we do have some tools available to us to be able to see whether or not a project might be in an area or, be for the type of residents that we think might give us, be a valuable opportunity. So I think we use some of that. But, I'm actually working with one of my assistants now to put together a screening tool, and I'll probably be using partially yours, Josh, which I've gotten from you in the past. And I've got one from another friend who does it too. And we're going to try to establish some kind of screening tool, because not that this is the time when we need a lot of screening, because as we were talking about, it's a little bit leaner right now. Probably will be for the next year, but it's a good time to establish any systems that you need. So I figured, she's working from home. That's a good thing to give her to do. So we're going to put that together, because I've never really had that. And I think it's a valuable tool to have, to be able to say, sort of, what are you looking for? What is your budget? I think one of the biggest challenges we have as a design build firm is that whole, we walk a real kind of tightrope, I guess I'd say, because we design for our own installation, and that's all we design for. I don't ever design for someone else to install the project. So you get the clients that will sometimes, because we design.
Hold on.
My echo.
Yeah, the phone has its own agenda.
That sounds like me. It's because sometimes we get the clients who are number one, how do I get a competitive bid? Then, well, you just, you have to understand that we've been doing this for a long time, and we are very competitive in our pricing, and you just have to accept that. And obviously, you always have the opportunity to get other pricing, but we are the ones that have to install this design, is sort of how we present it. Yeah. But also the whole concept of, I think that's the challenge for us from a design standpoint, is that number one, we want the design and the install. And so selling both of those tools at once is sometimes a little bit trickier. And so trying to get that across, even in the initial kind of preview in a client, is very important, because not everybody understands that concept, that, you're only going to design for what you're going to install and how is it going to go. And, we've had to I've installed various kind of stopgaps along the way of my designs, so that I find ways to make sure that we're on target together, and that I'm not just giving them and it's getting harder right now with this whole Corona thing, because, where before I could go and present in person my design and then take my plan back and go back with it. Yep. Now it's, do I have to email it to them? I'm trying to do some things, virtually, but it's a little more complicated. But in the past, I've been able to present and then keep my plans and then talk through what they wanted to do and not give up plans that could then be used by others. So I think that's one of the things about having a well-developed, as you say, sales technique. That's really ours, is trying to get that whole pattern down, and ours and works through the design phases, and that's continuing to sell as you're designing, which I think, I find that it works for me to do it sort of a little bit, then sell a little bit more through the plants, and then sell a little bit more through the accessories, the lighting and the, the water, additional water features or the containers or all of that sort of thing is an add-on after that. So once you kind of get the ball rolling, that it's helpful.
Yeah, once they accept a certain base budget and a core project, right? And then it's like this stuff has to happen for the entire project to be something. Then you can start building out from the onion, if you will. Just keep adding those pieces on, because we love doing it. We call it mining for gold in projects, right? Because that's what it is. Once they're ready to roll, then it's like, what? I see that corner. We could do something there. What about lighting on front of the house? Right. Have you ever thought about fixing this so it matches the back? And you almost always get yeses for that stuff, but you're adding and adding and adding, and you don't have to sell that project because the client already loves you.
Right, exactly. I think that's so key. I think the only thing is that if you're the salesperson and the designer, just how much of a nightmare that also is, because if you've just sold the idea of something additional on the current project that you're working on, and you've got like 7 designs already sitting behind you that you have to work on, and it's like, oh crap, I have to stop those designs and go back to the drawing board here and do the lighting if I didn't already do the lighting design, or I didn't already do the containers, or I just sold some additional corner of the, you want that add-on, but it's always like, oh crap, that means I have to do that right now. But I think that that's really what makes you good, is if you can do that. I really do. I think that's so key to be a designer, to not only put your own stamp on it, to try to come up with something about it that's creative and interesting and maybe a little bit different than anything anyone has done, but also to be able to get those little extras layered in, because that's really what gives the details to a design. And if you can do that and you can get the client to commit to those things, maybe, you haven't used their whole budget and you saved a little bit of dollars for it, and that's great. Or sometimes, like you say, you mine the gold because suddenly they've now said, well, maybe I could go ahead and add that on. We just had that happen with a project, and it's like, great. I thought you said absolutely nothing over this much, right? And then all of a sudden it's, well, but for this.
We want to be comfortable out there. So let's add heaters. Let's get that furniture just right. Let's add that water feature and some planters, and then the lighting. And you're like, exactly. You said we weren't going above 75,000. Now we're at 110. You just keep adding.
Right.
And it's like, so be it. We want to make it perfect. We want to make it amazing. And sometimes I think people just have to get around the idea, or get their head around the idea that they're going to be spending some money. And once they say, look, it's going to cost some money, but we want it to be right. What good is doing any of it if we aren't comfortable out there? Because if you go out there and you've got something cheaper and you're sitting there in your chair and you don't feel comfortable, there's no way in hell you're going to engage that space. I tell clients, we're not doing anything then. If you're not comfortable in the beginning, we're not doing anything.
Right. That is so key. It's true. And I think that's really, as you say, the word comfort, because I think that's, part of it is, often our work is referrals, I'm sure is yours. I mean, so much of good any kind of design work comes from someone having recommended you 90% of the time. So a lot of times they have that level of trust, but getting them to trust you, that you're not sort of, I guess I'm going to say, somewhat ripping them off in terms of what the value is that they're going to get. So even though they maybe know your work and all of that stuff, there's still, you just know that there's that little bit of a wall there. And then once you get past that, and that's why it often is in the course of the project, it's often as you've started to build and they're seeing how things are coming together, and they're seeing the quality of the work, and they're starting to really see how things are beautiful. That's when you can sell more, because then they're like, oh, Oh yeah, I see. Well, I tried to see this because a lot of people don't see things. They don't even, no matter how good you are and you are really good, Josh, at the three-dimensional displays. No matter how good you are at that stuff, people still sometimes can't really feel it or see it or touch it in their own. So once they're slowly getting that, I think that's when you'll start to, like you say, I think the furniture is often the holy grail that we all like. Can I actually also get to do the furniture? It's like,
Yeah, exactly. And the pillows. I just want the pillows.
yeah, exactly. It's like there's nothing worse than you do a whole gorgeous landscape for someone and they go, "Oh, I got it. I'm going to get the furniture," and then they bring in something that is like so not the style of what you saw there.
They went to Target. Yeah.
Our control level, I want to control the furniture too. I do. Yeah, so when I can,
I need to take care of the furniture. I'm not taking pictures of your backyard. What the hell are you going to do?
Yeah, there have been times I brought furniture in actually for that to take pictures.
You have to. You're like, yeah, your stuff is pretty, but we'll put it to the side.
I don't want to damage it.
Yeah. I can leave it here for a fair price.
A couple shots with yours, and then I'm just going to put this in there.
Exactly.
You do what you got to do. Yeah.
Well, Bill asked, are your plans more of a concept plan when you deliver plans to a client? Your initial plans, are they more of a concept plan?
I would say no. Actually, they're not. They're just the hardscapes. I kind of phase in my hardscape first, and I always like to think that if I can get them to commit to what my ideas are on the hardscape, then I'll go back and do the plantings. I usually show them some ideas of the kinds of look of what the plants will look like, what I'm thinking. But usually I'm giving them my best on the plan in terms of the hardscape. Sometimes I'm giving another option, but not too often. Most of the time I'm coming in with it, but I'm also really prepared to make the changes that I have to change, and if I put something down and they don't like it, then I'm always prepared with trace paper if necessary to be able to say, oh, well, were you thinking more of it being over in this area, or you wanted a bigger patio? I can do that. Yeah, we can definitely expand. And, that's what I have found. I try not to leave my hardscape appointment without them absolutely loving everything that I've put in front of them or about what I'm about to rework and give to them. There have been times, it's not too often, most of the time I have to say I've been lucky that the work I present they love, but there have been times when someone said, I kind of saw this not being quite so square. I have a tendency to draw with a lot of squares. I don't know what it is about me. And I've gone back and said, okay, you want more of a curving walk, or you like a more circular fire pit or something like that. And I've gone back and reworked it with similar concept, but with slightly different, and that's fine. That's it sells. So I find that works for me. And rather than trying to do the whole entire thing with the plants, it's funny because a few friends of mine that are designers through APLD, we talk each month, and Josh, because you were at one point part of our group, and we are all talking now about our various sort of processes, and I'm interested to hear how everybody's doing it, because everybody seems to do it differently. Some people are just a sketch initially, some people are the full-on thing initially, and it's all different. But I have found that for me, that's how it's worked over the years the best.
That's fantastic. Bill also, he says the reason why I asked is because you said it would be hard for others to implement your design. So do you give them just the bare bones so it makes it tough for others to grab it and go? And actually, a first question would be, do you charge for that design, or is that complimentary, or how does that all work with your process?
Yeah, I charge for design, and I ask for half down up front. And then when I present that to them, well, would it be hard no, it's not that it would be hard for them completely. I mean, someone could take that plan, and that's why I don't like to give it to the client. Most of the time they could take my hardscape and give it to someone else, and they could. But the difference is with design build, I don't do a lot of details. And so what I rely on is the conversation that I'm having with the client and the description, and then our proposal. It's not to say that someone couldn't take our design and the design I'm presenting there and do it. And it's happened on occasion. It definitely has happened. Someone will say, oh, I've got so and so can do it for me cheaper or whatever. And if it happens, it happens. But it doesn't happen that often. And most of the time, that's because we've also really proven ourselves in terms of the value. And most people aren't coming to us to be the cheapest, you know?
Yeah.
So if they're hiring us because what we can do. So the reason I'm really giving only the hardscape first is because I really just want to make sure I'm working out what they want. That to me is how I sell job, is that it's not just about me coming up with this great creative idea, but it's also about making sure that it fits with what they want. And so, yes, that ideal client has me do what I want, but I still have to make it be something that feels comfortable to them. And if they say, oh, I don't really see that, or I didn't want that, which doesn't have too often, but if it does happen, I just rework the plan to try to make it closer to what they want. And then we usually find a nice compromise and go forward with that work.
No, that sounds good. And Bill also asked then so what if it needs to go for permits? Don't you need details for stormwater or whatever it might be? So I imagine it's probably the next step once you get further down the line.
That's once we have a contract. We don't go for permits or anything until we have, an agreement that we're moving forward with this contract, and then we go get the permits. So basically, we've never had a situation where I just have someone ask me to look into permits and figure out for them whether we could do something, and they weren't even signing a design contract yet with me, and I was like, that's not happening. So I mean, it's like I don't work for free for God. But it's like,
especially permits, I guess the least part.
Exactly. It was a lot of work too. I was like, we're not talking about just a conversation here. We're talking about I have to put some stuff together. So no, we generally do the hardscape plan, get it approved, get a signed contract to go forward with the work, and then we go and get the permits for the work.
That sounds great. Another question for you here is, how do you think this outbreak is going to change your business long term? Will there be any ramifications long term on what you had to go through during this time?
Well, everything has a learning curve, I guess. So there'll certainly be some things. I mean, I think personally, professionally, I'm starting to learn how to do a lot more technology than I ever did in terms of, even just this kind of thing we're doing right now, but just even, using things like Zoom or whatever to talk to my office staff and my assistants, and, just different things that we're finding new ways for our crews to punch in. There's so many different kinds of technology that we really didn't take advantage of that much before. We're perfecting so many of our systems, from the way that we, take in information from our crews to the way that we are billing things now, the way we're tracking our employees. I mean, just our systems are improving immensely. So I think that's a huge positive, to come out of it. And then, obviously, there's, the personal aspects of it too, just really bonding with our team, it's been huge. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, I think that your team will feel your loyalty to them over this time, and all the stops you've taken out to make, everything easier for them, and by still following the regulations, but trying to make it reasonable, and all of these things that, that they know you're in it to win it with them as well. And it's not, you guys could have hung your hat and said, I'm not really going after this battle. We're just going to wait till it's over. But you didn't. You kept all but one who decided to leave, you know what I mean, employed and have meaningful work, and you guys are still cranking, and it's really good. I'm sure that'll build a lot of trust long-term and loyalty.
I think you're right. Dave interacts, my husband Dave is the one that's really, sort of getting the crews out in the morning. And he's, we have 3 different staggered start times at 2 different locations. And he's the one that's really doing it so that our managers can work from home. Yeah. And, it's pretty interesting how much he and I have basically had to sort of hold the fort down, because we do have our business at our house. So it's kind of, one of these situations where we can't work from home. We are here. So we're here, we're keeping it going. And, it's amazing how many of our people say to us every day, thank you so much. We really appreciate our jobs, and we really appreciate that we can do this. And so as hard as it is, and we do see how hard it is for all of them. I mean, I know I've been out working, trying to do a couple of gardens with a mask on, and I know how it impairs your breathing. It's not easy. These
Yeah.
people are working all day long wearing masks. They're cleaning with Clorox bleach, in the morning, and in the afternoon they're washing their hands, I don't know how many times a day, and using sanitizer where they can. They're, like I said, they have a little bit of fear, so they have a little bit of focus, and that's helpful. And we're trying to provide them with all the tools that we can. We just gave them out bandanas that have our little logo on them, and we,
Nice.
we gave them extra. We normally give the existing employees get 3 new T-shirts, and they're like, we gave them 5 so they can have more opportunity to make sure that they can do laundry, less often, but make sure they're always wearing clean clothes. So it's all these things that you have to do to try to make it a little bit better. But I do feel that the team itself really, and they say it, and Dave sees it, that when he comes in, he's like, these guys are just, and girls, that we have a lot of women working for us, are really pulling together to look out for each other. And it's
Cool.
that's the thing I think that we will most remember and value from this experience coming through it. And whatever work is, like I said, we've been through a couple recessions. We know what it's like actually to be on both sides of it. So we're just hoping if we can keep everybody healthy and maybe move forward a little more slowly is okay. Sometimes it's good to slow the pace down a little bit.
No, it sure is. And, I'm sure they're proud to be able to have a job right now. And I'm sure they're, for their families, and I'm sure they know a lot of people who don't have work and don't know if they're going to have work later. So I'm sure there's just a ton of respect with that. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So if you had to offer other landscape design build companies one tip or one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's the tricky one. So let's see. I think the tip that I have for designers in particular, but even for owners of landscape companies, is make sure you make time for yourself that gives you time to have sort of a really clear focus in your mind for peace. Because when you're working during the week, there's so much happening, and every day there's some kind of stress. It's normal. Spring is stressful, and we're going through spring. It's everything needs to be mowed now. Everything needs to be applied now. Everything needs to be cut back now. Mulch needs to go down. Normal spring is happening. There's stress at that level. And clients still have expectations, especially they're home now and they're all watching you from their windows.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot more stress that way. And then add to it the fact that, as I said, you're dealing with trying to keep your crews healthy or yourself healthy, and trying to do all of those things and trying to work maybe in new ways that you're not used to. What I have found most valuable for me is I really take my Sundays to heart. I really do. We even gave our whole entire company off. We just called it Corona Day off on Friday for the Easter holiday weekend. And we just said, everybody's off, everybody's paid. Take that day. You'll have a 3-day weekend. And believe me, it was valuable.
Yeah.
So garden if that helps to give you freedom. But even if it's just do a puzzle or do something that gets your brain to totally be free away from everything. Because if you can do that, then when you come back to it, you're not quite so stressed out. If you keep working through the weekend and keep trying to do it, I find that it'll be overwhelming, and then it can get to a point where you're just too full to do it. So that's one tip. And then also just having really, really good systems in place to know where your people are, know what's happening every day, know who doesn't come in, who doesn't, all that's unfortunately the tricky part about this business right now. And that'll give you some pause sometimes, but I think being organized, more organized than you've ever been at this time, is important.
Yeah. And taking some time for yourself. Often when, as business owners, we have a lot of pressure to keep things moving forward here, even in times that most of us have no one's ever done something like this before. So, we're elected to be the ones to make the decision, if you will, to the different decisions and the hard decisions that have to be made. But having that day or those 2 days a week that you can just have no pressure on you to just be, and to find the clarity and the why and why this all makes sense and all that, it's really important. So I can definitely, connect with that for sure.
Yeah. And, I've been watching this, there's a show on Netflix. It's about extraordinary homes. I don't know if you've seen it. It's all about mostly beautiful modern homes around the world. It's an architect and this actress who's like sort of very focused on home repair and renovations. It's a very high level show. I don't watch a lot of these shows, but these homes that they're visiting, if you get a chance to see this show, I have to say it is amazing. And so to get caught up in that and see the design techniques and all of the interesting things of these extraordinary homes from around the world that they explore, doing something like that, it's kind of like, it brings me back to why I'm doing what I do. I love design. It's an escape. I'm not thinking about anything else. I feel like even, so on a rainy day, do that. On a sunny day, go out and, get a little bit of sunshine for sure and get some gardening or something and maybe. But
I've watched that show. I forget its name, but I think his name maybe is Pierce.
Yes. Does that sound right? Yes. Have you seen that show?
Oh, I have, yeah. Crazy houses.
Oh,
there's
my God.
Guy that does some houses that are unique as well, and he goes around and talks to it's always homeowners who build their own homes. They always GC their own stuff, and it's just very interesting to see the different things they get into. But with that program, the houses were the one steel house. Do you remember that one where
the rusted steel? Everything is rusted steel. Yes. Yeah. As much as we're working in steel these days, I was like, okay, that's overkill for me. But still, to look at how they manipulated it. I mean, I think that's the thing is if you can find something like that to kind of like, it brings you back to why you like what you're doing, like it pulls you back to your design ideas and why you're thinking about design all the time and loving it. And, taking away all of the other parts of what you're doing as a designer and an owner of a business, that the business owning piece, you can put that aside just for for a couple of hours, give yourself a little bit of a break and dive into something like that. I think that's the ticket rather than trying to take on more on the weekends, because I feel like even though there's that temptation to do that I've done that over the years sometimes, but right now, because of the nature of this, because it's less about business and less about competitiveness and less about trying to get the next job, it's more literally about survival. I think you personally are better and healthier for keeping yourself mentally and physically healthy than you are worrying about trying to get the next job. So that's my thoughts anyways.
Totally agree. And Bill asked, Tiger King?
That's on my list. That's on my list. I have to, Dave and I have pushed past that one so far, but everyone's talking about it. I figure I have to get to that one very soon. Yeah. So that's the next distraction. Do you like it, Bill?
I tell you, Donna, the curiosity got me and I had to watch. So I'm like the third episode in or whatever. And
is it good?
Let's put it that way. It's different. So I'm drawn
to the fact that I'm not gonna lie. The guy has some funky looking clothes, and I'm like, I would enjoy that. I think, but I don't know.
It's so different.
We haven't done it,
and you won't see anything else like it. That's for sure. Just something else. So,
maybe this weekend we'll do.
You got to try at least a few episodes, and you guys will either turn it off or never stop watching it. One or the other.
You can't turn away.
It's kind of it's something different. That's for sure.
Okay.
So, what positive do you see coming out of this crisis for our industry? Like, what do you see being something we look back and say, you know what? Thank goodness we went through that because this happened. What would it be?
That's a tough one, I have to say. I know I told you I thought that was going to be a difficult question to answer, to be honest with you. What do I see? Like I said, I think that the technology will advance a lot of us. I think because we are an industry, the landscape industry, that doesn't really necessarily take advantage of that much technology. I think we're finding so much within our own company how paperwork is getting done now more electronically. A lot of things are being, changed in that respect. And I like to think, and I could be wrong about this, that as you say, as our clients are home and they're really understanding the value of the landscape and how much it does really give you that opportunity to revive yourself.
Mm.
I think, walking out, I mean, I have probably, well, definitely my largest client just basically called up and said, I need more flowers in my life. It was like right now they have huge swaths of daffodils blooming, and they've just decided that they want more and more for the, rest of the year. And I said, oh, that's a tough one for me. Yeah, I think I can handle that. So I'm like, yes, more flowers. Love that idea. But I think that's gonna translate for all of us, whether it be in our direct clients that we have now, but even I'm gonna say maybe we'll gain more employees, people who value this, the kids that are home getting to actually, play in the dirt and, work with chalk on the ground and do lots of things. I think they'll have a much more be more relatable to what we're doing now, because I think that there will be that coming from it. I think there's going to be much more appreciation of nature, much more of an appreciation of what nature does for us as human beings. The biophilic idea, the concept that the sound of water, the feel of the sunlight, all those things. I think that we're all appreciating them just in tiny ways, just
Mm.
how it can help you to escape this. And I think it's going to be the thing that we're going to see, maybe not drive a huge more demand, but maybe it will. Maybe it'll at least
Yeah,
have a little bit more interest in it for the future.
absolutely. And you think about how many people are going to be raising their own gardens this year. I mean, I think
Yeah.
there's going to be a big push.
Vegetable gardens are exploding, yeah, already.
Huge.
Yeah,
So it's like we had to slow down in order to move into the future.
right.
It's kind of crazy to think that way
Right.
because we always had a garden as kids, and my parents still have a garden, but we have lots of flower gardens, but not a whole lot of vegetables around here because you can go to the store or go to the farmer's market or the farm next door and get all the stuff you need pre-done. Who's got the time? But I think this slowdown has helped people realize that even they could have the time if they chose to
Right.
do it. And teaching the kids, as you mentioned, getting their hands dirty, teaching them where food comes from. This is a perfect opportunity, and it's springtime on top of it. So it's just a perfect scenario that way for all of those things for sure.
Yeah, and as we were talking about with how it is with money for any client, you know, they have a budget. What they add on is always because that's what they value and that's what they
Yep.
want.
Yep.
So it's really just a matter of what do people value, and hopefully this time period, if it will teach them to value, as you say, the idea that maybe yes, that tomato ends up costing $10, but I
Yeah.
do it myself and the taste is going to be worth it, And so
Yeah.
some of it's that kind of thing of just learning to value those aspects of having the butterfly come and or the caterpillar even, there to look at. Those are the things that I think that, I think this, unfortunately, this virus is not going anywhere for at least a year, probably, and unless we get very lucky and come up with something that maybe can slow it down or help people to get healthier faster. But it looks like we're all going to be dealing with it, and so the question is, how many people are actually going to go back to work full time, or still going to be a lot of people home? So I think we're going to see that there's going to be a lot of people through the next few months in their backyards, really, valuing that experience more. And like you said, hopefully everything goes.
I put up with it way too long. It's time to go. Do you have any other wisdom to impart on us before you go?
No, I mean, I think that one of the things that the mantra that you're hearing everywhere is that we're all in this together. And I think it's interesting that I think even as designers, we all feel that way. We're in it together. And I know I'm happy to have, and I'll just put a little plug in for APLD. I'm happy to have made the connections I've made through APLD, the Association of Professional Landscape Designers, because I have great friends from across the country with whom I'm able to share a great deal of information these past month, basically now. And many of us have made decisions based on what we've learned from one another in terms of how things are going in one area versus another. We've shared, documents, or maybe, we came up with a letter to send to clients, one of us, and that, so the other person could use that letter and just change it a little for their own business. We've found ways to support one another, and that's really been so key to being able to get through this. So whether it's this, which I really appreciate what you've set up here, Josh, this is a great venue for designers to be part of, and I appreciate being a part of it, or whether it's being part of APLD, or whether if it's just, locally, if you're involved in an association with your fellow landscape professionals, reach out to them, talk to them, and know that we're all going through the same things in different levels. And what you share, you will be surprised. Sometimes you think, oh, I don't want to talk to anybody about it because I feel awful. And sometimes I have that feeling. But on the other hand, it's often really helpful to talk, because if you talk, you'll find that they feel the same way, and you can gain some real camaraderie and some ability to bond together to get through this. And then we'll all be hopefully on the other side of it in a year and talking about all those projects for the rip outs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, you're spot on. I love that. It's so much about coming together at this point. And, oftentimes we think that we're an island, like all these problems, we own them, right? No one else has these problems, they're just ours. But once you start talking to people, you start realizing that everybody has the same problems. And if we unite together and have a conversation like we're doing here, or, like we do in Yes Express or through APLD or anywhere, just bond together with others in the industry, you're going to find that they're all dealing with the same thing. And some of them have solutions you haven't thought about.
Right.
So it's a matter of, translating that information. And the one slowdown to that information being transferred often is you think, oh, wait a minute, if I give that to them, what if they use it and then they surpass me, or they use it in competition with me or something? And I'll tell you right now, it's all bullshit. All of us are trying to help each other grow, regardless if you are 1 mile away or 1,000 miles away. It makes no difference.
Right.
The more you give, the more you get in this world. So just keep giving as much as you can, because then when you need something, the universe just drops it on you. You don't even realize it. Also, like, wow, right there it is.
That's right.
Or we met through the APLD as well. You know what I mean? So without that organization, we would have never met. We wouldn't be doing these calls right now, because a lot of these amazing people are coming from that area, and it's a very good group. It's a nice tribe. That's what we're trying to create. It's a tribe to help each other all through this. So
exactly.
Yeah,
that's the key. And I think even if someone does take something and everybody gets their opportunities, sometimes that person can run with it and do better, and then it'll be your opportunity another time. So I think that if you can't ever worry about that too much, and I'm a highly competitive individual saying this, but definitely I think if you can share with others the things that can help to build them up, you do build yourself up as well.
There's no doubt. And it was a damn good idea because somebody wanted to steal
That's
it.
Right. Exactly.
It's been such a pleasure today to talk to you, and I'm so glad everything's working great for you guys up there, and that you're able to work, and that everything is it's feeling like a spring that's just a little bit different. So that's really great. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us here. I'm hoping people get some use of it, and it can make their lives a little better and their business a little bit better. So again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jim.
Continue to keep crushing this spring. And thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. We're going to have more of these types of interviews here at Yes Express over the next few weeks, getting you involved with industry professionals around the country, and even around and how they're handling this situation, so that we can all grow and benefit from this and come out even stronger on the other side. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll be back soon. Bye, Donna.
Bye, everybody.